Does your gameplay look like this? Are you sick of dying all the time? In this video I'm going to show you how to go from being a squishy bean to being an overpowered god. Alright then, while we chop wood in the background, I'm going to go through a few settings when you're creating your character and world. So for your character, I would recommend Classic. This is where you only drop money on your death. Journey mode is like Terraria's version of creative mode. Medium core is when you drop items on your death, and hardcore obviously is only one life. Then for your world, I'd recommend small for one player, a medium world for 2, maybe 3 players, large anything more than that. And then for your difficulty, I would select Classic. I would recommend this for beginners. Journey mode if you're playing with a journey mode character, and Expert is better loot but it's much harder. Master mode even harder but also better loot. And then for our evil biome, I would click on Crimson. This is the one we've gone for, but you can go for Corruption if you want to. It just changes some enemies, a boss, and some loot. When you spawn into a world, you start with a copper short sword, a pickaxe, and an axe. A pickaxe is for all the blocks in the world, whereas the axe is literally just for trees and cactus. So I'd recommend making a wooden sword as soon as you can. The copper short sword is pretty terrible. To do this, press escape, then navigate to the workbench, and then if you click on that, you can place it near your character. And then while standing near this workstation, because it works by proximity, you should be able to navigate then towards a wooden sword if you have enough wood in your inventory. Super easy stuff, so I'd make that as soon as you can, because it's going to make the world of difference. Once you've done that, we're going to work on a bit of a safety box, so if we ever come back at night, we've got somewhere safe to stay. So placing wood straight upwards as far as you can reach, and then go across about 20 blocks or so, and then go down by 2 blocks. So the 3 blocks that you've left is going to be room for your door. Then you're going to head over to your workbench again, and craft 2 doors, 1 table, 1 chair, a bunch of wooden walls, and a couple of torches if you've killed some slime for the gel. Right then, so to place the wooden walls nice and easily, because these can be quite finicky, I recommend standing inside your house with the doors closed, and then press Ctrl and hold left click. This is going to place all the wooden walls near your character super quickly and super easily. If you mess up and you go outside your walls, don't worry, just make a wooden hammer and then you can break those blocks that you've misplaced. You might just want to press Ctrl again to deactivate Smart Cursor, otherwise it will destroy the walls closer to your character, rather than maybe the ones you want. Once you've done that, we're going to want to make the most of the little daytime that we have left. So pick a direction to go in, and then go in that direction. You want to keep an eye out for things like this, the brown chest. So open that up, you're going to find either a weapon or an accessory. You can put your accessory in the accessory slot over on the right, and then you'll find some useful potions, some health potions. Hit H to do a quick heal. And then also you might find some useful tools like rope that can help you traverse the world. Just keep exploring until you either come across a desert. Now you can attempt to cross the desert, but it can be quite deadly. Or if you come across the Crimson or the Corruption, depending which one you picked. Now I'd recommend definitely not trying to cross that one because you probably will die. So just turn around and go back in the other direction. Again, until you either come across the desert or the Corruption. The Crimson is very red in colour, and the Corruption is very purple. So if you see either of these colours, that means that's the evil biome, so you're best off bolting it the other way. Now, we didn't get time before it was nighttime, but it's worth mentioning if you guys get a chance. I'd recommend making a couple of houses, like 3, so that your NPCs can move in while you're down caving. So for the merchant to move in, you need 50 silver in your inventory. For the demolitionist to move in, you need some bombs in your inventory. You can get these from chests and pots. And for the nurse to move in, you need to consume a life crystal. To make a house valid, the optimal size I would recommend would be 7 by 9, including the exterior walls. Any smaller than that and it's not going to be valid, but you can make it bigger if you want to, it'll just cost more resources. Once you've got the shape, make sure that the room has a table and a chair, at least 1 door, and a light source, and also the back walls like we placed on our little safety house earlier. I was pretty unlucky and didn't find a cave entrance on the surface, so I'm going to have to dig down and hope that I come across a cave that way. Now, night lasts for about 10 minutes, so I'm going to use that time to see how many resources I can get, and then I'll come back up and hopefully make some better tools and weapons. Now, at this stage of the game, you want to get whatever ores you can get your hands on. So tier 1 is copper and tin, tier 2 is lead and iron, tier 3 is silver and tungsten, tier 4 is gold and platinum. Now, you're only going to have one or the other in your world, because it switches them up from world to world. So you're either going to get copper or tin, lead or iron, so on and so forth. Now, it's worth keeping an eye out for these underground wooden cabins, because inside those are golden chests. And in there, you're going to find much better accessories, maybe even weapons. So it's a good idea to keep an eye out for those, because that's going to improve your character's strength greatly. In this particular golden chest, we found a band of regeneration. Now, this accessory gives us a slight increase to how fast our life regenerates. So drag that accessory over to your accessory slots on the right hand side once you've got your inventory open, and then that effect will be applied to your character. Back at the surface, we're going to want to process all of our materials and things that we've just found throughout the night. So head over to your workbench and craft a furnace. To do that, you need stone, wood, and some torches. I like to place that just to the right of my workbench. And then I'm going to gather all my iron and all my silver that I've mined and turn that into bars. With that, I'm then going to make an anvil. That's made with 5 iron, I believe. So place 2 platforms on top of your workbench, and that's going to allow you to place your anvil just on top of it. And that keeps it all nice and close together, so you can stand in one spot and use all the workstations all at once. Just makes life so much easier. And then with the silver and things that we've found, we're going to make some better weapons and tools. It's entirely up to you what you want to make. If you want to make some armor, you can do that, and then drag it over onto the right hand side. If you can see where I've placed that wooden armor, that chest plate, that's where the armor slots are. The column in the middle is vanity, so that's just going to change your cosmetics if you like. And then the far left one is dyes, so you can change the colour of everything. So we've got gameplay going off in the background in the hopes it'll show you guys the process of mining. And then on the little screen we've got what I'm currently talking about. So in his first chest we get super lucky and we find the Hermes boots. This is a great accessory for manoeuvrability and a must-have to any playthrough. Then we find a bunch of heart crystals, which is really good because we want to get to 200 HP. Just either click on it when it's on your hotbar or open up your inventory and drag it off into the middle of your screen and left click. Then we get a bat, which is a rare drop from a bat, as you might expect. We decide it's probably better than our silver sword, so we throw it on and start using it. We find the last life crystal to get 200 HP, so then we feel like we're going to be ready for taking on the next 2 bosses. Here we find a gem cave, which is super awesome. If you can find 15 of the same gems, then you can make a hook, which is great for maneuverability and boss fights and things like that. So if you can get a hook, win it. And then in our final chest, we find a magic mirror, which is a great item. It allows you to go back to spawn with just a simple left click. It has infinite uses and infinite distance, so amazing. And then with all the good stuff that we found, the first thing we make is an emerald hook, because we have lots of emeralds, so we thought, why not make an emerald? It's one of the better hooks too. So we equip that, and then as you pick it up, it's going to open up your equipment tab. But if not, you can click it by clicking that little chain looking thing over on the right. So then pick it up and place it in the bottom slot. That's where your hooks go. Above that, you've got mounts, then you've got minecarts, then you've got light pets, and finally at the top, you've got your cute pets. Next, we convert all our ores into bars, and then with that, we decide what armor's going to be best. We pick the platinum for the chest piece because that's going to give us the most defense. And then we make some silver leggings because that's the second most that we can get. And then we look at the helmet, but the gold ancient helmet has 1 extra defense, so we don't actually make it. But say it did have more defense, we could swap it out, place the gold one in the vanity slot, so it'd look like we're wearing the gold one, but we're actually wearing the silver one. Right, so now we're at the stage where we can take on our first boss. So head over to your evil biome area, whether that's Crimson or Corruption, and kind of travel down into the pits. And you're going to look for something that looks like this. And then with a crown in your inventory made from gold and a ruby, or platinum and a ruby, and combine it with 20 gel while stood near one of the altars, you'll be able to make a slime crown, and that's what's used to summon the first boss. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. So the more preparation you do for a boss fight, the easier the boss fight's going to be. I'd recommend making a good battle arena, or boss arena, whatever you want to call it. So here I go up a couple of blocks with some rope, and then make a crap ton of platforms. I'm going to go left quite a bit, and then go right quite a bit. You're going to see this here. That's just going to give me room to move around. And then I also recommend creating 2 levels so that you can use your hook or your double jump to get between the 2 levels, and that's going to give you another way to dodge the boss when it attacks you. Another good tip is to place some campfires, and if you can, place some sunflowers nearby. These are just going to give you small increase to your stats, which could be the difference between winning or losing. Now for the fun stuff, boss battles. So for your armor, I recommend silver or better, same with the bow as well. For your ammo, flaming arrows will do just fine, but if you want to pack a bigger punch, use frostburn. You can make those with ice torches. And then grenades will help a ton out if you've got a bit of money as well. As for your accessories, I would say Hermes boots and cloud in a bottle are a must-have. A grappling hook's going to help you get between levels, especially if you fall down, then you'll easily be able to get back up. Potions are really good if you're struggling, but definitely not necessary. I've got up there the ones I'd recommend using. While we're sleeping, to speed up the daytime so we can start the next boss fight, you're going to want to head over to your Crimson or Corruption and make a suspicious looking eye with 6 lenses. That's going to be the boss summon for our next boss battle. Right, literally not changing anything within my gear except that I use 2 potions this time. So to put your potions on, just press B, that's quick buff. Now in the fight, I run left and right, and then when I get towards the end of the platform, I wait for him to do a dash, and then I use that time to change direction. Using the platform above as well is a good way to avoid his attacks. If you are struggling with this boss fight, remember you can go caving again and get more health. You can go all the way up to 400 HP. We do that a bit later on when it's more necessary. I recommend doing the boss fight twice so you can get enough Crimtane to make all the new cool weapons. So convert all your ore into bars, and then I'd recommend making the sword and the bow. The yo-yo's quite cool, so give that a shot if you want to. To prepare for the next boss fight, I recommend going caving and getting up to around 300 HP. I'm also on the lookout for more ores like platinum, any gold chests, because then I can improve my accessories and things like that. I threw on a Splunker potion. This allows me to see nearby ores and chests, so super good for finding good loot. So I'd recommend putting those on if you've got a few. With full platinum armor, 300 HP and new weapons, we're ready to fight our third boss, which for us is Brain of Cthulhu. If you're in Corruption, then it's going to be the Eater of Worlds. Now we're going to head down into the Crimson, and this is where we're going to fight the Brain of Cthulhu. So we're going to make the boss arena down here. So just keep heading down and you're going to see a big open area. For us, it's like a big square. The next thing to do is place some platforms. We're going to create 3 levels here, so we've got multiple choices when fighting the boss, and that's going to help us avoid damage. Once you've done that, I recommend placing a couple of campfires or heart lanterns if you've got those. We make them, but we forget to place them because I'm an idiot. But anyway, we still manage it. And then once we've done that, we're going to destroy some of the Crimson Hearts. This is how we're going to summon the boss. Now don't worry if you've run out of Crimson Hearts to summon the boss. You can make it with 15 vertebrae and 30 vicious powder. When destroying the hearts, you're going to get a drop. The first one is always a gun, and then the second one and third one are going to be something random from a set loot pool. So hopefully you get something cool. I don't think we really get anything amazing, but hopefully you guys do. After blowing up the third Crimson Heart, the boss is going to spawn, so run back to the center part so you can be ready to start killing the boss. Now the first thing you want to do is destroy all the creepers, so the best way to do that I find is to use Jester arrows, so you can make those with wooden arrows and fallen stars. So just shoot into the clump, and then once they're all destroyed you're going to be able to do damage to the brain itself. The brain is vulnerable to knockback, so yo-yos are really good for this, or something that shoots quite quickly like a minigun for example. Just like Eye of Cthulhu though, I do recommend that you do this one twice, and then you're going to have enough resources to make a full set of Crimson armor. The next thing to do is focus on pylons, so creating 2 houses in each biome, and then with the NPCs happy enough, they'll sell something called a pylon. This allows you to teleport from pylon to pylon, and it just makes traversing your world much easier. I recommend going to the wiki to see exactly who likes who and what biome they prefer, but I'll give you the basics very quickly, just so you can set up some simple pylons to get to and from your areas. It's worth noting that you can switch people around, just bear in mind that the prices may increase because they're not going to be as happy. Fishing! You either love it or you hate it. Luckily, if you hate it, it's not necessary for progression through the game. However, you can get some useful stuff from it, so it's kind of good to do, even if you don't want to, really. To make the most optimal fishing pond, if you go 20 wide by 15 deep, that makes a volume of 300, which again is the optimal size of a pond to catch like the best stuff. You can fish in any body of water, but I like to make one that's close by. You can complete quests from the angler, that's a great way to get some quest rewards. So it's going to tell you a fish to go and catch in a specific area. So just head to that area, create a pond, and then fish in it until you catch it, and then make sure you return it in the same day, otherwise this quest is going to change. To fill a pond up with water, it's a little bit weird, but if you place a U shape above where you want the water to go, and then hammer down one of the sides, holding a bucket in your hand, hold left click above where you hammered, and then you should infinitely place water until the pond is filled. Next thing we're going to look into is farming, so that we can make lots of potions, because this is going to help us later on in the game. Now collect the following: Daybloom seeds from the forest, Blinkroot seeds from dirt or mud in the underground, Moonglow seeds from the jungle, Waterleaf seeds from sand, Shiverthorn seeds from the snow biome, and Deathweed seeds from your corruption. To make the potions, you're going to want to place a bottle on a platform, and then I recommend having a chest with all the ingredients so that you can easily access it and make a bunch of potions at once. The next thing we fight isn't a boss, but it is the Goblin Army event. Now this can happen naturally if the character has 200 HP and you've destroyed either a Shadow Orb or a Crimson Heart. Now we've done that, but we weren't lucky enough for it to happen naturally, and rather than waiting 2 years for that to happen, we decided to travel to the outer fifth of the world and kill a bunch of Goblin Scouts. Now these have the chance to drop something called Tattered Cloth, and with that Tattered Cloth, you can make a battle standard at a loom and then summon the event in like that. After defeating the army, you're going to have access to the Goblin Tinkerer. He can be found underground somewhere in your world, just keep looking until you find him. This guy gives you access to something called Rocket Boots and the Tinkerer's Station. This allows you to combine accessories. At this point, it's worth mentioning about the Shimmer. You can find this by heading to the ocean on the same side as the jungle. Just before the ocean, dig down. It's around 2,000 blocks, so no further than 2/3 of your world. By throwing certain items into the Shimmer, you can allow yourself to get some permanent buffs. To prepare for this boss fight, we head over to the jungle, and we look for an accessory called Anklet of the Wind. This can be combined with an aglet and the Hermes boots and the rocket boots to make some pretty epic boots, so if you can do that, highly recommend. We also get Feral Claws, which improves our swing speed and makes our swords auto swing. But at the very least, I recommend combining the Hermes boots and the rocket boots. That's going to allow you to fly for a short duration. But in terms of the boss fight, take out his hands first. That's going to allow you to deal more damage to the skull and make it much easier to deal with. Make sure you keep your distance, because if you get hit by his spinning head, it's going to deal a lot of damage and may even kill you. If you're curious what sword I'm using, it's called the Blade of Grass. It can be made with jungle spores, stingers, and vines from the jungle. Now, once you've killed the boss, you can head down into the dungeon, and I recommend looking for an alchemist table, a bewitching table, and also open up as many gold chests as you can. To open the gold chests, you're going to need some gold keys. You can find them in brown chests that are in the dungeon. You can get them rarely from killing enemies or pots, and you can also get them from killing dungeon slimes, so keep an eye out for those. The next stage of the game is all down in hell, so buy a bunch of bombs and then use those bombs to make a long tunnel all the way down to hell. This is going to give you easy access to get from the top of the world to the bottom. When you've reached hell, I recommend looking for two things, one being the Hell Forge. and the second being a Fire Blossom. The Fire Blossom is going to allow you to make an Obsidian Skin Potion, which is going to allow you to take no damage from lava. I'd also use this time to look for shadow chests, so if you found a shadow key in the dungeon, then use that key to open up as many chests as you can find. Once you've made the Obsidian Skin Potion, use that, and then it's going to make this process so much easier. You want to gather around 200 Hellstone ores, and then with that, you're going to combine it with Obsidian, and that's going to make Hellstone bars. With the Hellstone bars, you can make a really good armor set, and a couple of really good weapons. Once you've done that, I recommend heading over to the Crimson, or Corruption, and combining these 4 swords together to make the Night's Edge. This is the best pre-hard mode sword you can make, and it's going to make fighting enemies in early hard mode so much easier. The next boss is Wall of Flesh. After you've killed the Wall of Flesh, it's going to turn our world into hard mode. Corruption spreads a lot faster in hard mode, so we're going to want to make some preventative measures, if you like, to protect our world. So where the corruption is, I recommend blowing up a perimeter that goes all the way around it, and then that will stop it from spreading. If you've not already, I recommend using some gravitation potions to explore the Sky Islands, and also do anything else that you might want to do before hard mode, like stock up on potions, stock up on money, etc, etc. If you haven't already, I'd also recommend checking out the Queen Bee. She can be found in the jungle biome inside some wasp nests. So that is one of the bosses we've not covered, but it's not necessary to progress through the game. She does drop some useful items and weapons that could help us with the fight, especially if you're struggling with the Wall of Flesh. To summon the Wall of Flesh, you're going to want to kill a voodoo demon. This drops a doll of the guide, and then what you want to do with that doll is simply throw it into the lava. So be really careful when killing voodoo demons that you don't kill it over a pool of lava, otherwise that's going to spawn the Wall of Flesh when you're not ready for it. As you can see, the Night's Edge doesn't struggle at all at defeating the Wall of Flesh, but if you want to keep your distance, I'd recommend the Boomstick, which can be found in the jungle. The Molten Fury is also a good bow. The Bee's Knees is a good bow that's dropped from Queen Bee, and also Bee Nades is also a really good way to kill the Wall of Flesh. And there you have it, you've defeated the Wall of Flesh. Hopefully you got an emblem that corresponds to the class that you want to go down. If not, just fight the Wall of Flesh again if you want to. The first thing I recommend doing after entering hard mode is head over to your evil biome, and using your new hammer you can destroy the altars. Every time you destroy an altar, it's going to give you a new hard mode ore. You're going to get 3 of the following 6. You're going to get Cobalt or Palladium, Mithril or Orichalcum, and finally Adamantite or Titanium. So the first one you get is tier 1, the second one you get is tier 2, and the third one is tier 3. Drink a Splunker potion because this process is as painful as it is, and then you want to gather 45 Cobalt or Palladium ore. That's the exact amount that you need to make a pickaxe ready to mine the next tier. After making the Cobalt pickaxe, I'm able to mine Orichalcum. You're going to have to gather 112 of this so that you can make the Orichalcum anvil and the Orichalcum pickaxe. Remember, you might have Mithril, so you might need to look for that instead. For tier 3, you want to gather 246 if you have Adamantite, or 266 if you have Titanium. This is going to allow you to make a full armor set. To convert the ores into bars, pick up your Hellforge, and with 30 of the ore, that should allow you to make the Titanium or Adamantite forge. Next on the list is upgrading our weapons, accessories, and also our wings. Because I'm going down the ranger route for now, I decide to upgrade my weapon first. So heading over to the Crimson Desert, I want to kill a few blood mummies as they have the chance to drop something called a Dark Shard. I'll need 2 of those with the shotgun purchased from the arms dealer, and also 10 Souls of Night to be able to make something called the Onyx Blaster. I'd recommend going down the melee route as it has more defense, so the accessories that you'll want to use are the Warrior Emblem, the Yo-Yo Bag, and the Berserker's Glove. You can still use some of the ranged weapons, in fact I'd recommend it, a mixed class isn't such a bad idea. Next we work on getting some wings, so take a gravitation potion and head up to a sky island. Here there's a chance for a wyvern to spawn. If you want to improve the chances, then take a battle potion. They're quite tough to kill, so do be careful. These guys are going to drop Souls of Flight. We need 20 of them to be able to create our new wings. I go for fairy wings, just because I'm a pretty fairy. But if you want the best wings that you can get at this stage, then the frozen wings are the way to go. The easiest wings to get are probably the angel wings, but they're obviously not that good, so I won't recommend those. The last thing we need to look into is how to gather Souls of Night and Souls of Light super easily. So when you first enter into hard mode, there's like a giant V that spawns in. Half of the V is the hallowed biome, and half of the V is the corruption. So you want to head underground to these spots and open up a huge area. This will increase the spawn rate, allowing you to gather more Souls of Night or Light much quicker. I used dynamite to clear out this huge area. Just keep in mind though, when you start making the room bigger, things are going to start spawning more often, so it's going to get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. If you're having a hard time finding mimics to spawn naturally in the underground Crimson or Hallowed, you can spawn them in by making a key with 15 Souls of Night or 15 Souls of Light, depending which one you want, and then place that key in an empty chest, and then when you exit the chest, it'll spawn the mimic. And it's finally time to take on some bosses. Now the first set that we take on are the mechanical bosses. I strongly recommend taking some potions for this because you're going to notice a big jump in difficulty from pre-hard mode bosses to hard mode bosses. The first boss that we decide to take on is the twins. Now for the twins I recommend taking out Spasmatism first because I find that one does the most damage, and if you can defeat that one then you've got a much higher chance of winning the boss fight. I use the Onyx Blaster and Daedalus Stormbow to do this, with Ichor bullets and Ichor arrows. I also use a few holy arrows, these do a lot of damage so I'd recommend those. If you're going down the melee route, the Amarak should do the job, as well if you can make some Ichor flasks, that'll help you lower the defense of the boss so you can deal more damage. With the increased maneuverability of our wings, it's a good idea to make your platforms longer and the gaps between them bigger. This will help you dodge the attacks from the bosses. We don't really do that and it does make the boss fight harder than it needs to be. Next on our list is Skeletron Prime. For this one I recommend the Daedalus Stormbow because it has a good area of effect, which means you can damage all his limbs all at once. I use the Onyx Blaster to apply Ichor, which will allow me to deal more damage with the bow. This boss moves kinda slowly so you can fly big circles around him, but some of his limbs sometimes fly at you quite quickly, so just be aware of that one. The main ones to take out is the one that shoots lasers and drops bombs. Once you've taken those out, there's not much that can damage you. The final mechanical boss we're going to take on is the Destroyer, which is the mechanical worm. I recommend a different setup for this one. So make a little platform out of solid blocks about 70 blocks above the surface. This is going to stop the worm from reaching you, and also going to stop his lasers from being able to shoot you. The only thing you'll then have to deal with is probes that come after you when you damage the boss. So try not to deal too much damage all at once, otherwise you'll be swarmed by loads and loads of probes. And no one wants to be probed that much. Other than that, this boss fight's pretty easy, so you might want to do this one first. If you're struggling with the other bosses, and you can defeat this boss, maybe do this one twice or 3 times, and then you'll be able to make a full set of hallowed armor. After each boss fight, make sure you pick up the souls. You should have Soul of Fright, Soul of Might, and Soul of Sight. After defeating the mech bosses, I recommend going over to the jungle. You're going to find a new ore, this can be used to upgrade your tools and armor. To mine chlorophyte, you'll want to make the Pickaxe Axe. This is made with 18 hallowed bars, 1 Soul of Fright, 1 Soul of Might, and 1 Soul of Sight. You're also going to find something called Life Fruit. This can be used to increase your max HP up to 500. You're also going to see Plantera's bulbs. This is what we use to summon the next boss, so I don't recommend doing that just yet. Also keep an eye out for the Jungle Temple. This is where we're going to fight the next boss after Plantera. It can be a little bit tricky to decide what wings to go for next, because they're all the same, except some are rarer than others. The one I decide to go for is pretty rare, so I wouldn't really recommend going for that one. As you can see by all the banners, it took quite a long time. For you guys, your best bet is probably going to the jungle, killing a bunch of hornets, and looking for a moth. Chow down on your favourite potions and then break a bulb. Try not to stray too far too quickly, otherwise the boss will despawn. For the first phase of Plantera, she's pretty easy to deal with, just keep moving and then you'll dodge all the seeds that she fires. I recommend holy arrows for this one because she's quite slow, and you can get all those arrows to hit, which will do mass damage. Again, try and switch between something with Ica so that you can lower the defense of the boss and do more damage. For phase 2, Plantera is much more aggressive at chasing after you, and she'll also move much quicker. I recommend flying larger circles around her this time, so that you've got room to move and dodge all the other projectiles that are coming your way. To gear up for the next boss battle, I decided to make some mushroom armor, or shroomite armor as it's called. If you're doing melee, I would recommend turtle armor. At this point, it's also worth noting that new stuff is going to be happening down in the dungeon. So if you want to go and check that out, you might find some good weapons and accessories. I head down there and get a tactical shotgun, a really good weapon for ranger. I'll be honest with you guys, I struggled with this boss fight. Look how small the room I was given. Usually the room at the end is much bigger, as you saw from the picture earlier in the video. So I got a bit screwed over here. I hope you guys don't get screwed over like I did. So it did make the boss fight a fair bit harder, I'm not going to lie. But we managed to do it in the end. After this though, I do decide that I'm going to switch over to melee instead of ranger. We don't do much different from the Plantera fight in terms of accessories and things. We just change up his armor. And yeah, on this fight you just go left and right, trying to dodge all the projectiles. That's kind of it. Good luck. This boss fight is a bit of a meme in terms of how easy it is. However, if you get a room like this, it does make it a fair bit harder. It's also been reworked quite recently that's supposedly made him a bit harder. So maybe they've done that by making the room smaller. I don't know. While the solar event is on, I decide to try and get a broken hero sword. With this I'll be able to upgrade the True Knight's Edge to make the Terra blade. You'll need the Excalibur made from 12 hallowed bars. With the Excalibur, you'll combine that with 24 chlorophyte bars to make the True Excalibur. And then with that, you'll combine the True Knight's Edge, the True Excalibur, and the Broken Hero Sword to make the Terra Blade. At this point of the game, it's a good idea to improve your boss battle arena. So to do this, I recommend going to the Steampunker and purchasing the Blend-O-Matic. With this, you can combine 2 stone and 1 gel to make asphalt. With this, you can create a long bridge, which will drastically increase your movement speed. Armed with our sick new sword, it's time to take on the Lunatic Cultist. Kill the cultists at the entrance of the dungeon, and that'll summon the boss. It's pretty easy to deal with. All you need to do is fly around in circles around the boss, and that should dodge most of the attacks. He does this spell where he summons in 2 decoys of himself. You want to hit the one that's slightly more transparent. After defeating the boss, you're going to get an Ancient Manipulator. This is used to make endgame weapons and armor. After defeating the Lunatic Cultist, 4 celestial pillars are going to spawn. The Solar Pillar, the Vortex Pillar, the Nebula Pillar, and the Stardust Pillar. If you're melee, you might want to take the Solar Pillar out first, as from destroying the Solar Pillar, you'll be able to make new weapons. If you're a ranger, you want to take out the Vortex Pillar first. If you're a mage, you want to take out the Nebula Pillar. And if you're a summoner, you want to take out the Stardust Pillar. To defeat the towers, you need to kill 100 enemies well within the range. The enemies will be corresponding to what pillar you're near. After destroying 100 enemies, the pillar's shield will then be lowered and you'll be able to destroy the actual pillar. After destroying the pillar, make sure you pick up everything that dropped from it, because you'll want to use that to make new weapons and later on armor. Say you're melee and you've just destroyed the solar pillar, I recommend going back to spawn, placing the Ancient Manipulator, and using the solar fragments to craft the 2 weapons. The Daybreak is really good for a single enemy dealing high damage, whereas the Solar Eruption is better for crowds of enemies and less accurate fighting. When trying to defeat the Solar Pillar, the hardest enemy to deal with is probably the Crawltipede. Yes, that's what it's called. You need to hit this one in its butt. After you destroy 4 pillars, it's going to summon the Moonlord, so it might be worth after you've destroyed the 3rd one to get geared up ready for the boss fight. A good tip for the Stardust Pillar is breaking down a star cell to where it breaks into its smaller form, then wait for it to regenerate, and then break it down into its smaller form. Keep repeating this until you've destroyed 100 enemies. After destroying the 4th pillar, you've got 60 seconds to get back home, buff up, and get ready for the boss fight. As soon as the boss spawns, you want to run left or right, and then start dealing damage to the eye on his hand. Pay close attention to the eye on his forehead. When it opens up, it's going to look at you, and when the eye centers towards the middle of the screen, you want to start flying up and flying around the eye, as he's going to fire his death beam, which deals a lot of damage. Then it's just a case of repeating that until you've destroyed that eye in his hand. Rather than switching directions immediately and getting hit in the process, I recommend waiting for another death laser beam to be able to switch directions more smoothly. After switching sides, you're literally just going to do the same thing. Remember to keep the eye in his forehead in view so you know when to fly up and around. After defeating the second eye, you literally just want to change your focus onto the eye in his forehead. The same principles apply, running side to side and flying up and around when he opens up his eye to do the death laser beam. After destroying that eye, you want to then take your attention to his core. This one likes to sit below the platform, so you have to jump up a little bit just so you can keep shooting it. There's also a lot of lasers that happen during this phase. Most of them are unavoidable, so you'll just have to tank the hits. And that's it, you've beaten Moonlord. If you were unfortunate enough to not do it the first time, you can either defeat the Lunatic Cultist again and go through that process to summon Moonlord, or with 12 of each dust, you can create a celestial sigil, which can be used to summon the Moonlord directly. This game has a lot of content, so I know I've missed a million things that could be useful to you, but I've just tried to cover as much as I can without the video being too long, so I hope it was helpful for you guys. If it was, I'd love to know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this content, I do stream on Twitch, the link will be in the description below. My next playthrough that I'm planning on doing is a thorium thrower only in master mode. I might do it as 100 days, I'm not too sure yet. If that's something you'd be interested in, again let me know in the comments, that'd be awesome. Thank you, bye bye.